Welcome to Men in God. This is the show where we inspire men to be driven into their purpose. We inspire them to leave a godly legacy. Today we have the men of God all the way from KZN. Mfundisi, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm Apostole Musa Khwela. I am an apostolic leader of a church called Jesus Restores Ministries International. It's based in Durban, in the Bluff, and I'm happy to be here. Well, in terms of what I do, I am a church pastor, as I've just indicated, and I think the pastoring work that God has called me to do is something that I've found to be very fulfilling. Number one, it is about channeling lives to the right path. I mean, your show is Men and God. It's about channeling people to find their God-given purposes, why God created them. It's quite exciting. And so that is my job. I do have other things I do. I consult on certain areas. But basically, I've come to this show because I'm a pastor, so I'll just highlight that area.
Wow, powerful. I'm your host, Pastor Jacob Mabote. Men of God, we want to go deeper. We are concerned that the world today is focusing on empowering a girl child. No one is talking about a boy child. The concern is that this empowered girl child, if she meets a boy child, how is she going to handle him if he is not empowered? So I want you to share with us what can you say about a boy child, because the world is focusing on a girl child.
Well, let me say, I think there is some basis why the world thought it should do something about the girl child. The only challenge has been we needed to do a balance. Now, at the moment you attend to issues that afflict a girl child, you may also want to recognize that there may well be issues that afflict a boy child in the same way. And given the fact that a girl child does not grow in a woman's world, she grows up into a world that has women in it, that's for sure, but has a lot of men. And the present order of things, the truth is, in the present order of things, men are still running the show. And therefore we must do something about the men, because it is not useful for a girl child to grow up in a world that is run by men, and she only grows up into a system that whose men are not ready to handle her, because they've not been prepared for that. And so I think it's a very important thing that we just focus on our children, both girls and boys, and talk to them about issues that are important. Number one, for them to observe what it is that can make life work for them, what it is that they can do to succeed. Listen, look at the South African situation. We have a situation where boys go to any township, you'll find boys sitting on the street, not doing anything, going to parties, coming late at night because they've been to some party. That definitely tells us that the boy child is lacking something. There's something that must be done, that there's something that must be said to him that can actually help his situation. And remember, he is also growing in a world where his father was not there for him, because first and foremost, his parents had him outside of wedlock, and he never knew his father. When he grew up, it was only his mother and his grandmother. Most men, young men, have been brought up by their grandmothers and single mothers. So there's something to be said about that. So if you leave that person unattended, what type of future do you think they're going to build? What type of contribution can these people do and make to society? And because they still need to get married at some point, what type of husband, father will they be if no one is interested in nurturing who they will be?
What can we do as men today to rectify what our forefathers and what our fathers did that has led to us as this generation of men? That today there are people who are saying men are trash. A lot is being said about men today. What can we do now that can help the upcoming men to be able to be better people?
I think number one, I would say we must acknowledge our broken history. I think that's the first point. Our brokenness is not new. There's a historical element to it. We're not trying to make a claim that our society's traditional society was perfect. No, I think there was a lot of things that were not perfect in traditional society. But traditional society was more stable than what we're experiencing now. What do I mean by that? I mean, back in the day, mom and dad would be at home 24 hours a day. They would go to the fields for a couple of hours to till the fields, but by the end of the day, they'll be back home. So issues of behavior could be quickly rectified because the father would come back from the fields and there'd be a report on what misbehaviors were done in his absence, and then that would be corrected there and there. So fathers were present. There was issues of land. Fathers had land, the families were on land, there was land they could work and feed their families. So there was also issues of land. So there's a political, because our brokenness has a political history to it.
Okay.
So there's that. If there was ever a time where fathers were not there, they would have been gone. We are going Kulu, that is the King's Palace, to go there and discuss national issues, but they'll be back at home. They would have gone to war because there were wars. So those were elements that were not perfect about traditional society, but they would be back again. So mothers and fathers were there. Grandfathers and grandmothers were always in the yard also, because we had these bigger families. The grandfather was always around. So if the father was absent, things could be reported to the grandfather for him to attend to. Then enter the capitalist age. Discovery of diamonds in Kimberley, the discovery of gold in Johannesburg. Families begin to suffer breakages. In other words, you have wars of conquest. Europeans come in, they take land from us. For the first time, our fathers have to go and work in order to feed their families, because they've been transplanted from an economy that was based on land to an economy that has been monetized. Now they need to have money to put food on the table. The economy has been financialized. So our fathers need to go and be at hostels in order to feed their families. Fathers would be gone for 6 months at a time. That's where it all began. They would suffer with TB, die. Now, we must understand, with the capitalist age, the whole issue of life expectancy dropped. Men died earlier because of capitalist development. Now, if you look at that history and you follow that history to the struggle days, again, some of the fathers has to go to exile, and some of them had to run up and down and not be at home because the police are going to be there at home. Some of them are in industries. Look at that. Some are in exile, some are not at home because they are running away from police. Some are at work, coming back twice a year. What type of society can you build out of that? So in order to bring solutions to this, you really have to look at the values of the capitalist system values. They have not been very kind to Africans. They've been very harsh to our very communal system of livelihood. We live together. We people who love to live together. We love to attend marriages. All of us are there. Every family member is there. But with us working in far off places, it's no longer easy for us to keep the family unit running. Now the church comes in to close the space where the father is not there. Then there is a social environment that is safe for children. They can have role models, male role models, in a pastor, in the elders, fellow other church members. That's where the role of the church becomes very important.
Wow. Mfundisi, you have said a lot. But I want you to share your biggest cry about men. And I want you to speak to our viewers. Tell them about your biggest cry about men. Just inspire men. Speak to men out there.
I'll say this to the viewers. The biggest challenge that men are facing is, number one, to live up to the God-ordained mandate that God gave men. God has graced men with issues of leadership. If you look at the word of God in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, God said, let's create man in our own image, in our own likeness. Verse 28 says, and God said, he blessed them. And he said, multiply, have dominion, subdue, replenish. So you have a challenge, number one, to have dominion over the space that God has called you to occupy. But you can't have dominion over those spaces if you yourself have not been attended. Number one, you must attend to issues of identity configuration. You must know who you are in the plan of God. You've got to understand that. You can't be a man who goes around insecure, who goes around abusing people. You've got to find yourself, find your voice, so that you are a caring man, so that you are a man that brings hope, so that you are a man that is able to build. So that's what God is calling us to do. You must understand you have a mandate to lead society. You have a mandate to protect your girls, your daughters, to protect your sisters. You have a mandate to protect your wife. You have a mandate to bring change to society. You have a mandate to be a priest to society. I think that is the greatest challenge that God is giving to men. But men must make time and make platforms where they can come together and share their issues, so that whenever they go out to do these things, they go as men that are not broken. They are men who are whole, they are men who have been healed, they are men who have been restored, men who are ready to take up the things that God has given unto them as a mandate and do those things to the end.
Wow, powerful. Mfundisi, if the viewers, they want to connect with you, bangakumana nawo kanjani?
Sikhona ku 079 589 3589. You can drop me a WhatsApp there, drop me a message. I always advise people to just drop a message, because sometimes you can call and not find me. But if you drop a message, I will definitely come back to you. It's 079 589 3589. Sikhona ku Facebook, Musa Khwela JRMI. You can befriend me on Facebook. Sikhona ku Twitter @Musa Khwela. You can follow me on Twitter.
Wow, powerful man of God. Thank you so much for being with us today. We are blessed and honored to have you in our show. Mbugeli, don't forget, this is DaveytonTV. We are doing it ourselves. Keep pushing, keep trusting God. We love you. God bless you. Shalom.